join us today. It's a beautiful, beautiful morning. It's going to be 3 degrees here in the GTA, which is, pretty exciting. Pretty exciting to have that in January. Lots of stuff going on in the news. Looks like everybody's turning on Trump now that he's on his way out. Bitcoin's getting slammed. Taiga Gold. We had an article from our resident CFA, Jim McFadden, over the weekend. Elon Musk tweets about Signal making some other stock go crazy that has the word Signal in it. Curaleaf getting $50 million of debt financing. Venturepoint entering a collaboration to test their echocardiology technology. And the big news is we're going to have Marcel Gunter from DataMetrex joining us shortly. So buckle in, get ready. I got a new background, by the way. That's some pretty exciting stuff. All right, let's hit it.
Good morning, guys.
My camera conked out on me, Jordan.
SmallCapSteve saying his camera conked out. It must be a result of his bricklaying work over the weekend there. Getting that fancy backdrop in. Lots on the go this morning. Politics south of the border here is as wild as ever. Just reading now that Democrats have moved to impeach Trump on incitement of insurrection. Yesterday, they did give a 24 hours to Pence to invoke the 25th Amendment, which is also another way of getting him out of the office. So lots of drama. Markets have been up, down, and all around this morning. Gold and silver had a steep sell-off before running back. So it's definitely not a dull morning for those watching the markets.
It's interesting, and I'm back now. So all over CNBC, I usually wake up around 7 a.m. and I like to watch CNBC for an hour. All the chatter, all the talk, is it looks like the Republicans are the people who normally put money into the Republican Party. They're now all starting to turn on the Republicans. Here's an article from CNBC, JP Morgan, and Goldman Sachs. They join a whole list of U.S. corporations that are halting political donations after the Capitol riots. So our writer Braden Mack put out a good piece on Twitter on the weekend talking about this sort of risk that's involved for Twitter, why they would go down this road. What's your general thoughts and what are you hearing?
Well, for me, I'll be upfront and honest. I have no problem with corporations stopping political donations. I think politics is far too influenced by corporate overlords, essentially. So to me, this is not a bad thing. I mean, that article there did outline that it's both Democrats and Republicans that are losing funding. And that's just so that corporations don't look like they're playing partisan politics, right? But yeah, I mean, as Braden pointed out, I think a large part of the whole pushing Trump out of places in terms of social media, we saw him getting kicked out of Facebook, Twitter, and all kinds of platforms where he wasn't even on, such as TikTok and Pinterest, and on smaller, more niche social platforms, right? And I mean, there's also all the stuff that's been ongoing with Parler and losing support from Amazon Web Services, as well as Apple. The Apple Store and Google Play. And I mean, it's just a reality of it's a risk that these corporations no longer have to take. But before, they had to put up with Trump, even though he was going against all kinds of terms of services, because if they didn't put up with them, then they knew that he would come after them. Now that he's got no power, they can pretty well say screw off, and that's that, right? They can wash their hands clean of the drama.
I'm fascinated in all this by how Pence is going to be looked at 4 years from now? Is he going to be seen as sort of that guy who, did the right thing at the big moment, who sort of turned on Trump? Because look, the Republicans they're going to throw Trump under the bus after everything that happened. Is Pence just going to get, is he going to be celebrated, or is he going to be, his association with, being vice president under Trump, is that going to hurt him in future elections? I'm fascinated by sort of the PR and the imaging that goes around Pence moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, the difference between Trump and Pence is a career politician. Trump is not, as we all know, right? So, I mean, there was certainly risk with him initially even agreeing to be his VP 4 years ago. And now he's now hated by Trumpists effectively because he refused to meddle with the electoral college voting last week. And I mean, Democrats aren't a huge fan of him either for backing with Trump. Like, Pence's career, depending on how he plays the next week, might just be done in terms of politics because of his associations, right? And I mean, I'm not saying it's not deserved. Everyone makes their own bed and lies in it, but it was certainly a political risk he took, and he's still taking, honestly.
Yeah, look, I'm fascinated by it. I've seen these things get turned into positive, great situations. So we'll see. Moving on, Bitcoin, it's getting slammed. As always, our focus is primarily to cover small cap and micro cap. Let's take a look here at this article you threw up this morning. Just a quick little note you sent out to our subscribers. Bitfarms continues to see strong demand for its equity given the current momentum within the cryptocurrency sector. The company this morning announced the closing of a second private placement with U.S. institutional investors for 20 million Canadian. The announcement follows a similar closing announced just last week. I don't get the miners.
I don't either. And I mean, good for them. I mean, never let an opportunity go to waste. There was also HUD 8 Mining this morning closed something like a $77 million financing. Again,
$77 million. That's real money. That's
real money, and that's again with U.S. institutions. So I mean, clearly there's institutions looking to get exposure to Bitcoin any way they can. A lot of them are apprehensive of actually going directly into the cryptocurrency, so miners offer that opportunity for them. Now, I mean, the risk with miners is from the second that you add that infrastructure of additional miners to your system, they start degrading immediately, right? It's like anything. And I mean, the higher the price of Bitcoin goes, the more computing power comes online as people try to mine it, and it gets harder and harder to make a return, right?
So here's like the general reason that I love micro cap and small cap is when we think of it this way, if Bitcoin, if it did keep going, and I tend to think it will. I mean, I think that this is a pullback. I don't think that this is the end of the second Bitcoin bubble, if you want to call it that. People look for the catch-up trade, right? So they're looking for, okay, I missed Bitcoin, but there's this cute little micro cap, this tiny little company out of Canada that I can get caught up on all those gains that I missed out on. And I think that the strange thing about this crypto Bitcoin bubble in terms of the Canadian microcaps versus the last one is that people learned a lot last time. They learned that like most of this IP is junk, and they want to allocate capital into these names because they see an opportunity, but they don't really know how. So early on, like the winners are those miners. But as I understand it, I mean, it's only going to get more competitive. There's only going to be less coins available. Yes, the coins may be available at a higher price that you're going to be granted for solving these problems and keeping the network running. But the economics seem to make less and less sense to me actually as the price goes higher than they did when the price was lower. It's not just like like gold, where when the price of gold goes up, I mean, I suppose you're going to get more companies mining, but your gold in the ground is your gold in the ground. And it's not like I guess the best analog would be if other miners can come and start taking your gold out of your ground, would be the primary difference if in that analogy. But there's going to be some stories. If Bitcoin, let's say Bitcoin does come back and it rips up to $75,000 or something like that, there's going to be some St. George eco minings and those kind of stories that, quite frankly, make no sense. They catch a ton of social media traction and they run. So I don't think that this thing's over, but it's certainly going to be fascinating just to see how the space does this time around versus last.
Absolutely. I mean, the whole topic of the risk of miners has been well covered by Jim McFadden time and time again on our platform. And I mean, it's all great stuff. I mean, he's analyzed Hut 8 mining, Bitfarms, Hive. I know he's a huge fan of Bitfarms. I'm not certain if he's long. Either way, he has identified the risks of this, right? I mean, the best time to mine Bitcoin is today because tomorrow there's probably going to be more miners online. And I mean, with the price falling, sure, even if it's a pullback, it's less and less economical, right? So there's a reason we saw a lot of these miners not turn a profit for the last year while we waited for the price to rise again, right? So, I mean, is what it is. I'm not a huge fan of the mining play. I think the analogy to gold is great in the sense of the price of gold can go up, but it doesn't mean that it gets harder for me to mine the same metal that's in the ground currently on my property, right?
Yeah, the big difference though, right, is with gold, the higher the price goes, the more gold people are going to go out and try to find, and the you're at risk that your project's no longer the pretty girl at the dance, right? Because that means more money's going to exploration, means that if you're staring at like a nice little 1-2 million ounce inferred resource, that all that money is going to go into exploring places that really haven't been explored, where there are those big ones, and suddenly you're no longer that attractive girl that is
you're still making the cash flow though. That's all that matters, right?
Yeah, no, that's that. Well, look, this is 2020, man. Cash flow don't matter. It's all.
I guess you're better being a private operator in that sense.
It's all about storytelling, and we're supposed to be interviewing the founder of Wall Street Bets later with Cassandra, and like I was sitting around watching YouTube last night and just watching some of the stuff that Jamie talks about, and it's the whole psychology of trading and how it's changed so dramatically over the last few years, where there is a complete divorce between fundamentals and prices, or you would say the economy and the stock market. Those are just separate things now, and it's all about storytelling and momentum and having traction on social media. It's just like it's just.
It's not really what you think of when you think the stock market, right? And I mean, this leads into, I think it's our next story here with Elon Musk. He sent out a tweet on.
Let me pull it up.
Yeah, pull it up just to say use Signal. And what did the Robinhooders do? They didn't think of this competitor to WhatsApp. Instead, they just looked for a ticker, and this thing has just gone bonkers. Last week it soared 1,100%. I think this morning it was up to something just ridiculous, like $36 off of 30 cents. So I mean, I hope the management team of this company was well optioned up and that they've just unloaded in the face of the stupidity. Because I'm all for the small guy until stuff like this happens, where it's just no research done whatsoever. You just buy the first thing that makes sense. Yeah, Signal Advance has gone nuts. Today it hit a high of $70.
Wow, it's at $70, so it's 10x from.
It's at $30 now, but it hit a high of $70 today. This thing before was at 59 cents. Is that like? I can't do the math on that multiple that fast. So I apologize. It's just not happening. It's like 1,000x. I don't know.
Yeah, and then ultimately it brings in a ton of traders, and sometimes you can actually churn through some real volume. So I don't even know what this company does. I don't think it matters. It sounds like it's just like
it doesn't matter. It's just a classic case of Robinhood buying without actually looking, right? And I mean that seems to be the world we live in. Due diligence is dead. which pains me more than most people to say. I mean, it's a passion of mine to do due diligence, but when you have stuff like this, does it even matter?
Okay, let's get to our next quick little story here. Taiga Gold. This is a piece done by Jim. Constructive gold project option agreement exercised. I know you called me on the weekend telling me that you really like this piece. Of course, whenever there's anything happening in Saskatchewan, I get a call from Jim. the ongoings.
I might be a bit biased.
Corner gas ended, but.
Oh, so yeah, Taiga Gold. They've optioned out now 80% of their Fisher Gold property to SSR Mining. I think one of the most notable things is this property has got to have something great that the market isn't necessarily aware of, in the sense of SSR Mining has been going balls to the wall to option out this property as much as they can. They acquired 60% of the property as of November, and now they're at 80%, forming a joint venture. They've paid $3 million to Taiga to enter this joint venture. And I mean, it is located right next to their CB Gold operation, so the likelihood of gold being on the property is pretty high. They have done a lot of exploratory drilling. I don't have the results on me off the top of my head. And I mean, it's great for one of our clients who's right next door, SKRR, who has the Leland property, which is also optioned from Taiga. There's gold in Saskatchewan, and the crux of it is people don't really...
because nobody wants to go to Saskatchewan.
No one wants to come here, and I mean, that's fine. I like it here. Steve, you've got more neighbors than there's people in Saskatchewan, and I find that hilarious, and I love my space. So, I mean, nothing wrong with it. And I mean, let the operators like Taiga, SSR, and SKRR option the whole place out and make a lot of money doing so.
Okay, well, we got the man of the hour, the guy everybody is looking forward to coming on and answering some questions. Marshall, can you hear us? Oh, I don't know if you can. You there, Marshall? Oh.
Hello?
Okay. Hey, Marshall, you can hear us. I don't know if he's got his mic turned on.
I don't think he's got his mic turned on.
Need to turn on your mic. This is the fun thing about doing the show live. And yeah, he says he can't hear us. Okay. Do you have your mic or audio turned on? Maybe we'll have to see if he can join us on his phone. This both work outside this one. We can hear you. We can hear your mic now. We can hear your mic. Okay, maybe we'll have to type questions. We can maybe get him to join via his phone. Want to try joining via your phone? That works as well.
Yeah, so it's always fun diagnosing on the fly in terms of.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if he can hear us now or not. I told him to try to hop on via the phone. I sent him the link. We got 40 people online, so everybody's pretty amped up to have Marshall here. We just got to figure out this little technical difficulty.
We'll get there.
In the meantime, let's maybe take a look at some of the recent news that DataMetrex put out this morning. Let me pull up the official company. I know you did a note on it, but do you want to do your note or the company news release?
I've got it here. So you want me to share my screen quick?
Yeah, go for it.
Alrighty. Let's see if I can figure this out on the fly. Okay.
There we go. Okay, there we go.
I'll zoom in so viewers can read because I've got my font that's so small. Alrighty, so
Okay, your phone's now cutting out on us. Here we go. Here's Marcel. There we go. Let's see if we can hear him. Marcel, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you, yes.
Perfect. Okay. We're all set up. Okay.
I'll hold the phone here.
Okay. Jordan. Okay, we're having a lot of technical difficulties today. Okay, so Marcel, let's start off with the news today. What's the latest or the story with the Air Canada?
So Air Canada has now started testing, their pilot crews on various routes as countries are now opening up some of the airways. They are requiring that these crews be tested by certified labs and that those results are communicated before the crews and pilots and such are allowed to enter the country. So for instance, like some routes to China, including Hong Kong and Brazil, and some other places are now requiring these tests. So Air Canada is doing this out of Toronto right now, and we're hoping to follow up in Vancouver shortly. But as more and more of these routes open up internationally, there'll be more and more tests to do.
Okay. So last week you guys announced the acquisition of a concierge company. What can you tell us about the company?
So this is Concierge Medical. They're a telehealth company. Okay, we've actually been working with some of the people behind this company for quite some time in our testing space, right? And so this fills both, a short-term and a long-term need for DataMetrex. In the short term, a lot of our clients, have been asking for this type of feature immediately because, especially some of the clients that have personnel that are not Canadian. So for instance, the production companies and such, where there are a lot of Americans working in Canada, have asked to have, direct access to medical personnel via the internet or via their phone. For instance, when say an inconclusive COVID test is done or they get a positive case, they're unfamiliar, say, with our healthcare system in Canada, and they just want to talk to somebody who can help them understand the situation. So that's the immediate need, right? So we've been asked by multiple clients for this in multiple verticals, and to make this available. These guys had it, we needed it, and so we picked it up. But in the long term, COVID's not going to last forever, and we need to take a look at what we're going to do with this side of the business as a longer term play. And this allows us to come a little more full circle with that, so we have something that's on the table that is not going to go away within the next couple of years. And it's also something that we can use to explore the marriage of the medical safety side of things along with our artificial intelligence and cybersecurity business. So what can we do with the AI through these types of channels?
Apologies, I had my mic on mute there. So you announced this acquisition last week, but the day prior you had also announced that you'd be doing the COVID door-to-door testing. Are those intertwined, or were those separate and they just happened to come together at the right time?
They came together at the right time. They're both very strategic in this, and the fact that we can now go out and do the concierge testing. But again, if somebody needs this, to talk to medical personnel or a doctor or something of this nature, and they don't want to leave their house, we can give them this option also. So it dovetails nicely with several of the things that we're doing right now.
So what kind of revenue run rate would you say you guys are at right now? I don't know if you can speak to that or if you guys have given out any guidance, but are you able to speak to that at all?
Well, I can talk around it. I mean, it's going to be hard to give a revenue run rate for 2021 as we're only 11 days in. But let's take a look at our last two quarters. Like our Q3 came out, that was a record quarter for us. We did over 4.5 million there. And the previous 9 months up to that was a record 9 months, with us putting out almost 8 million in revenue compared to the previous year, which was just above 3 million. And that doesn't include Q4. And we're going to have our Q4 numbers out, very shortly. And we're also going to have an update out about the COVID testing. And those numbers continue to go up. So both of those will be out very shortly. When those numbers are out, and when those numbers of tests we're doing per quarter are out, everybody there won't be any speculation about run rate. Everyone will know where this is going. What I can say is, both on the artificial intelligence side of the business and on the COVID side, things are rapidly expanding. And those numbers are going to be much higher here going forward, into Q1 and Q2 of 2021.
So what can you tell us about in terms of the test kits? Obviously, there's new strains that are coming out, and both or not coming out, but that have been found in England and South Africa. From now, you guys are looking at a lot of different test kits. What are you guys seeing any sort of data on how this impacts sort of the test kit business?
Right now, there has been no impact to date. What it has done is sent a lot of the manufacturers verifying that their kits work with these new strains of COVID. And we have the paperwork stating that several of these, the kits, including the primary ones that we sell, are working with the new strains of COVID. So that's what they're seeing. They haven't seen one yet that has broken, the detection model. That being said, with the new strains coming out, you have to be hyper vigilant about this. And the manufacturers we are dealing with are doing their due diligence and are testing against this, and just keeping an eye on things, basically, because it's safe to assume that those new strains are not just where they were discovered, that they with the virality of this virus, they're here. I would say it's pretty, I'm not an epidemiologist, but I would say it's safe to assume that some of those strains are probably already in Canada based upon, just how fast they move. So we need to be prepared when it does hit. And to that effect, we are.
So last year, you guys had a number of announcements related to selling test kits to the mining community and other corporations like that. Have you largely shifted to a focus on the film production space, or are you still exploring those avenues as well for further sales?
Oh no, there's ongoing sales with the mining companies, both worldwide. The difference is the sales cycles. With the production companies, they're adding properties as fast as they can be added. Okay. Well, on the mining side, the sales cycles are a little bit longer because they order for an inventory of say 6 months, right? Or 4 months. So they order a very large block, and then they don't need anything for another few months, and then they come back and say, okay, we're out. We need to order X amount more test kits or X amount more ancillary materials. But with the production guys, it seems like there's a new show starting every other day, and there's quite a bit ramping up in January. So it's just a matter of the news cycle, so to speak.
Okay, I'm clearly having camera issues here. So in terms of the OTCQB listing, we're getting a lot of questions about that. Can you speak to where you guys sit with that process?
We're in the hurry up and wait zone. Everything's been filed, so we're there. All we've got to do is just wait for it to go through. So as soon as it goes through, then we will be letting everyone know publicly.
Okay. Let's take some more questions here. We have this is from Berg Gittamam. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Will DM sell all their AI? So I guess we're talking about the AI products, and this is really timely too, actually, and something that probably a fun day to talk about with all the ongoings of what's happened with Trump over the weekend. What's the plan for the AI side of the business? Which, as I understand it, you guys are actually running at a pretty high revenue run rate, which based using like a 10 times SaaS multiple. Like the company's like actually kind of almost fairly valued just on the AI component. What's the plan there with that side of the business?
Well, there's a couple things. We are continuing to land, on the private sector in South Korea to land and expand, and we will have more news about new products and new services going forward, both with Samsung, Wate, and in any new groups in South Korea. On the public sector side in Canada, to briefly summarize it, we are in a bid right now. Our first bid in what's called ITB. Now, this is a invitation-only bidding system with the Canadian government that we were invited to last year due to the good work we'd previously done. And so these bids are much, much larger. Just to give you context, so the bids we would previously go into, RFPs, would be a few $1 million. Some of these bids in ITB, like the first one, we're co-bidding with MDAs, probably expected to go in at about 40 million. So we're in a much larger playing field there. Additionally, a couple things with the AI. I mentioned earlier, we're exploring the, what we can do with the AI in the health sector, as this seems to be a really good candidate for any new products. But there's nothing really firm there yet, but we're definitely looking through it. Also, we're now actively selling in Europe. So it was.
We lost you. That's the problem with using a phone. You there?
Can you guys still hear me?
Yep.
Hello?
Yep, there we go. It's just a bit more distant, that's all.
So I can't hear you guys. Hold on 1 second. I'm gonna call right back in.
Okay. Yeah, it's been it's been
a morning.
For those kind of new to the story, the company was an AI business not that long ago, and then after COVID happened, South Korea basically handled the COVID as well or better than anyone, so the chairman of DataMetrex, Andrew Ryu, is very well connected in South Korea, and he was able to source a whole bunch of test kits to try to integrate within the business the sort of the ability to actually distribute COVID test kits, which you would assume we'd have like regular COVID test kits available at Shoppers Drug Mart, and this wouldn't be such a lucrative business, but it clearly is. Marcel's back now. So Marcel, a question I have for you is, and I've asked you this before, but why do you think it is that I can't just go to Shoppers Drug Mart yet and buy a test kit to test myself for COVID? What do you think are the sort of stumbling blocks there?
Well, in Canada, it's Health Canada. So they just haven't approved the kits that are capable of doing that. There are kits that, are capable of that. Now, they're not quite as accurate as the lab-based test. So the stuff you do at a hospital is going to give you, 99.99% accuracy. Most of those kits you can administer at your house are somewhere between like 90 and 94%. But they do exist, and they are, they've been submitted to Health Canada, but Health Canada is not approved. They've only approved one, and it's from a manufacturer called Abbott from Germany. And then the government bought up the entire supply. But you are seeing this in other countries. There's kits that are approved in the United States. There's kits approved in the European. And so great. Crash. Can you guys still hear me?
Yep. Yeah, we can hear you.
So it seems it crashed again. Hold on.
It's actually your camera's actually coming in clearer than ever. Nope, no.
Maybe not.
Let's put some hiccups. Yeah, we're still figuring it out. So what I find pretty interesting about the technology that they have is it has, and this is the AI side of the business, is that it has the ability to effectively look at where social media presence is coming from. So it can look at those countries and sort of connect the dots, sort of using AI, and it takes that unstructured data, and it could tell us if somebody, was using, like, let's say that theoretically, I'll pick, let's say President XY wanted to influence an election using, like, and it doesn't necessarily have to be President XY. It could be, outside interests that just like think that he's their best bet. They can have a whole bunch of Twitter accounts or Facebook accounts or YouTube accounts or whatever set up in the Ukraine or.
So one example of this, because Steve's stumbling a bit there, one example is the riots we saw this past summer throughout California. If I'm not mistaken, their technology was used to examine where the social media content was coming from and determine whether basically a misinformation campaign was underway in connection with it, to see if outside actors were trying to further fuel the fire and drive further discontent among the population. And I mean, they've been contracted out by the U.S., I believe it's the Air Force, through a special AI program that they have set up. It was using their technology. That renewed back in June, I believe. July 31st, sorry. The contract was extended for a second term with the U.S. Air Force. And by the sounds of it now, it's also working towards a contract with the Canadian government as well. So, I mean, while my understanding is that it works similar to a scraper and then aggregates all the information, there's clearly a demand for this from government entities who are trying to figure out the whole social media issue, right? So.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's some people that I see have followings on Twitter, and I'm convinced that there must be outside interest with a whole bunch of Twitter accounts, just retweeting and liking, and because it's good. It's not like those, like, you could see when somebody goes on Twitter and they have like a million fake accounts and they all have like weird, like, non-English bios, and it's just like, oh, yeah, this person just clearly paid for this. It's pretty sophisticated sort of Twitter bots relative to that. So I don't know. I'm hoping we can get Marshall back on because he's the subject expert on this. Let's see here. Anything else interesting that we can kind of sort of just banter on about here? It's tough too because I'm trying not to get too political. And you can see here sort of shows what their targeting looks like. They take unstructured data and try to make it structured, and put it into a report where they can look to see if there's outside interests that are sort of messing around with a company's political landscape. Then there we go. We got Marshall back. Marshall, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. I'm just having terrible technical difficulties today.
Perfect.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Oh, we all have those days. It's all right. So what can you tell us about the partnerships that you have in terms of with government entities for the AI side of your operation?
Well, we just finished what's called a program called Ideas. Okay, so that was part one. And what this program is they're looking for innovation in defense engineering, basically. So this was part of the program that allowed us to release a new technology that we just put out in December called SMART. And what that stands for is social media auto reporting technology. So this generally the way it works is we go into agreements with the government, different entities, whether it's like defense research, the DRDC, or OSINT, open source intelligence, or different combinations. And we build out products, right? Now, the interesting thing about the products is, when we're building out these research products, one, we get to choose what we get to work on, and two, at the end of the day, we get to keep the IP. So this effectively covers a lot of the R&D cost of our company, which is our biggest expense in an AI company. As you can imagine, the people that do the work do not come cheap. Now, with this next go around, the piece that we're doing is an extension of that IDEAS program, or what we're bidding on with MDA. And some of the use cases they're looking at are, additional research and stuff around media, but they're also wanting to use parts of this with the launch of the new space station that's going up in 2023 that'll be around the moon. So all of that's not exactly clear to us just yet, but these are the pieces that are coming together right now. Now, with that said, we're going to continue to, work with, Canadian government. We also work with the American government on these projects. And again, like I said earlier, we're now in a much larger bidding space. So we expect those programs to expand.
So
I got one for you. So can you break down the different kind of test kits that you guys sell, and ultimately where you see more traction in terms of what test kits are actually selling?
Sure. So we sell three major types of test kits. Well, we only sell one type in Canada, just to be clear. The first type we sell is called PCR. That is the kit that's going to be used in a lab, like when you go to a hospital or you get a test from a private lab. This is the gold standard of test kits. It's the most accurate. These are the ones that give you the 99.99% accuracy and stuff. Those are the highest selling kits currently. That's due to you can't be uncertain when you're dealing with, say, the general public, or like, say, you mentioned the mining crews earlier. If you're going to put 150 to 500 people in an enclosed space working shoulder to shoulder, you can't afford to let any of the virus through, period. So those are the majority of the kits that are going to be sold. Now, that's the only type of kit we sell in Canada also. Now, outside of Canada, we also have several other types of kits. So there's a serological exam, and those are used to, they're not as good a screening tool, but they're very good to figure out in what stage of the virus somebody has. So they can be used to say, oh, well, you had the virus, but now it's gone, right? That type of thing. And in addition, then we were talking about the kits that can be sold in, say, off the shelf in a pharmacy. We have those too. They're called antigen kits. Those can be self-administered in a lot of cases, depending on what the regional health authority says. And in other cases, they're being white labeled. So you could go to, say, the European Union, Walmart so wish, they could just have a Walmart COVID test. Those are, like I said earlier, not quite available in Canada. But again, I think as those get approved by different medical providers and stuff, I think those types of kits are going to be the ones that take off, as you're going to start seeing them, I would even think in vending machines, right? But you would be able to pick them up off Amazon, go to your pharmacy, pick one up, just like you would pick up, say, a pregnancy test.
Mm-hmm.
So are you expecting further sell through in international markets then? I mean, primarily your COVID-19 test kits thus far have been heavily focused on Canada itself, but I mean, as you mentioned, there are kits that you have that can only be sold internationally.
Well, just to be clear, we've sold internationally already. Like we've already sold, into Africa and South America and Philippines, all kinds of other places. And those sales are continuing, and we are always, we're in negotiations now with several other areas, like in the Middle East. We're in some negotiations with people in the European Union, different countries there, and different entities there. So those will continue, and that's also an ongoing part of the business. The key difference is when we're selling internationally, these are much larger sales in much larger chunks, and most of the stuff that goes on in Canada, these are they're like the productions and the people that need more turnkey style solutions, as opposed to building out their own facilities, doing their own testing, or their non-government entities. That's the key differentiator.
we see some test kit companies that they're trying to raise money. It feels like it's a little bit late to the game now. I'm just curious, have you guys ever kicked any tires over the last few months on any of these deals, and looking at acquiring your own company, or has the plan been to primarily just be a distributor?
Well, currently we're only allowed to be a distributor right now underneath the TSX, because it would trigger a change of business right now. But we have kicked the tires a little bit under the hood. What would it look like if we, as we move forward to, like I said earlier, what would it look like to move the AI into the medical space, right? Or some of our capabilities there. We're definitely looking at those types of things. And as some of those become more concrete, we will roll out any initiatives that we think are going to be good long-term solutions for the health of the company.
Okay, another question we got to ask here. Graph Blockchain. You guys own, I think I was told 25% of Graph Blockchain. What can you tell us about this company?
Well, we spun out Graph Blockchain a while back to focus and double down on the AI that we were doing. But as you stated, we do own quite a large chunk of Graph Blockchain, so we are heavily invested, and they're doing well. And that being said, we will support them and continue to support them at all times. So right now, Graph is making some moves. You can go on their board and check out what they're doing. Follow their news releases.
It's really jumped in price from like 3 cents to over 9 cents today. It's sitting at 9. Traded over 20 million shares in volume. That's a lot of volume. What does the company do?
Well, they're a blockchain solution, okay, but their differentiator is that they can make instantaneously fast blockchain transactions using an overlaying graph technology. So it's a very interesting thing, so if you needed, distributed ledger or any other type of blockchain and you needed it to work very quickly, like let's say you're tracking, I don't know, airline passengers, that would be one way. And you needed these blockchain exchanges to happen very fast, that, Graph can provide that function. Because by itself, the blockchain transactions are not always very quick, and in computing time is what we're talking about here. And so if you need that stuff done quickly and done accurately, Graph can provide that solution.
Okay, a couple of questions here from the audience. From Rob Daigle. Marshall had mentioned sales in Europe before he got cut off. Was that related to AI or test kits?
So what I was mentioning there was with regards to the AI. So we rolled out German support about a month ago. That's the last of the top 4 most spoken European languages that we were lacking. And we've been asked to do this by, government entities and NATO and some other people. So now we have about 90% spoken language coverage in Europe. So in addition to that, we also have a sales team on the ground now out of Berlin, and we are approaching the private sectors in the European market. So that has just begun. We rolled that out, like I said, within the last month. So hopefully we'll have some news over there. That being said, there are always test kit negotiations going on in the background. We don't disclose all of them because they don't always come to fruition. But we are, talking with other people in Europe on the test kit side also.
Okay. Here's a good question from Dallin Rands. Would you consider using concierge service for professional sports like NHL, et cetera? And also, when will we start seeing PR?
Well, we just had 3 PRs in the last week.
Yeah, I'll tell you something about micro cap and small cap investors. No matter what you do to put your name out there, it's never going to be enough. And you just got to kind of, in my opinion, you guys are doing a pretty good job. Lots of news release. You guys are keeping the market updated. Heck, you're coming on here answering their questions.
Sure.
But I'm more specifically the concierge service question. I think is a great question. So what's the story there?
Oh yeah, we'll definitely consider it. And the concierge service would be ideal for some of those people, especially if the players, they don't want to have to leave their home or other things like that. It's also available, with a lot of the productions and stuff, that sometimes they don't want to bring out their star power out to set or something like that. So there's a need for it there. But definitely we would, if the NHL or anybody like that was interested, get in touch. It's available.
What kind of a sales staff are you guys using to go and source sales? Like, is this all inbound, or do you guys have outbound people that are sort of going out and finding partners for you?
For us, this is inbound, but we do have a partnership with a group called ScreenPro. Okay, and ScreenPro was built to take care of exactly this type of stuff. Because I mentioned earlier, DataMetrex is only the provider of materials, right? So we're a brokerage, but we're not, as DataMetrex itself, we're not allowed to go out, and have a giant nursing staff and sales staff that's running through, trying to get these inbound leads. So that's how the relationship between the group ScreenPro and the group Metrics work. ScreenPro was built precisely to handle that type of those types of operations. So they are actively out there, with staff. They're doing some of these concierge pieces, also, servicing different industries and, taking leads and hunt down business that uses DataMetrex test kits and other ancillary materials to, get the job done, get the COVID testing done.
Not sure if you can answer this, but ScreenPro, I think I heard rumblings that they might go public. Is that something that you could see happening, or is it just a separate company altogether?
Well, it's a separate company altogether, so I can't really say. If you'd like to know, John McMullen, he's the CEO.
Yeah. Okay. Jordan, Jay.
My last question was just a concierge service. Obviously, you've got some partnerships within the film production space. Any chance of that going south of the border?
It's definitely possible. We've been asked about that by a few productions, and we're looking into that in both Atlanta and Los Angeles at this time. So it may, but we'll just have to see. There are some impediments to that, like there's different health laws and things of this nature that have to be looked into. But the companies that, some of the companies we've been working with have liked our service so much, they have inquired about that. But, if it becomes more material, we'll definitely announce something about it.
Okay, perfect. Any other topic that you'd like to sort of touch on today that you think investors really, feel you've been getting a lot of internal questions? We're getting a lot of the same questions from investors. Things like, what are you going to do to promote your stock more? It's like, well, you're executing, right?
Well, that's number one. So execution, I've said this from the beginning. We need to execute. We need to get the revenue in, and as that comes in and it becomes, when people see that it's actually real, the stock will follow, and it's been doing well in the last few days. And so the one thing I can say to them on that side is keep an eye out for those Q4 numbers and end of year numbers. You're going to get them. And then, our Q1 is, as it is today, yes, our run is looking really good. So, as we're able to report on these and as we're able to give updates, they will be coming. So keep an eye out for those press releases. Secondly, we are entering into some more IRPR. That's being done. If you guys were paying attention, we did some pushes over in Germany over the past month or so, because we have a lot of traction over there now, and we wanted to get the European market aware of what we're doing and what DataMetrex is. And now that we're available in Europe, we wanted to get more awareness around that. And second, we're going to be doing some more of that back here, both in Canada and in the United States as we move forward.
We've got this question twice, so I'm going to just throw it up there. Can you ask Marshall why the I1Bio test was removed from the Health Canada website?
I cannot speak to that. Health Canada doesn't give us any updates or anything. So, they've asked questions about I1Bio and we've answered them, but as a blanket rule, while we're under a pandemic, they will not give any updates, nor will they, take any solicitations for information. And that's not a DataMetrex thing. That's a Health Canada thing, and that's just their policy right now. So they don't, I can't even contact them.
Okay, so here's my last question for you. Moving forward, next quarter we've got the earnings coming up. Any other catalysts that you think potentially investors should be looking for, or maybe make this question a little bit easier? How should investors judge the company's performance and management's performance over the coming months?
Well, let's take a look at the deals we bring in, right? So that's how you should judge our performance. Are we doing our jobs? Are we bringing in, revenue and, profit for the company? So, I've mentioned quite a few things that we're involved in right now. The way I would judge us is on how many of those materialize.
Okay, perfect. And as I understand it, I think you guys actually are executing the best out of any of the coronavirus solution companies on the Canadian junior market. So that's like a sincere tip of the cap to you, because you guys have followed through with what you said you're gonna do. I think it's interesting, lots of different parts of the business here, from the AI side right through the COVID side. So thanks so much for coming on today, Marshall, and I appreciate your patience with all the technical difficulties we ran into. It took a while for us to sort of get into a groove there, but I know that your investor base is super passionate. They really appreciate that you took the time to come on, and we hope to have you back on sometime with more big news and less technical difficulties.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. You guys have a great day.
Thanks. Okay. Jay, it's been a pretty fun little morning here, technical wise. My camera.
I don't think we've ever had so many technical issues in a single episode, which is unfortunate given the demand that DataMetrex has had for viewers. But so apologies to our viewers for that. This is what it is. Sometimes we can't help it.
Super passionate shareholder base. And
absolutely.
These things tend to work out well when the company executes. And you know what? Marshall's done a pretty good job executing. Like, we've seen a lot of companies come out and they've put a bunch of COVID stuff in news releases and they didn't do anything. He's done a lot of, he's signed some significant deals.
Absolutely, he has. They're definitely putting in the work. Sales team, it's great to hear how much of this is inbound. I think that's just huge in the sense of that's only one sales channel. To me, inbound and outbound is two entirely separate sales channels, and it can only get better to me, right? So
it tells you how real they're and how much demand there is for what they're selling if they don't even have to have outbound and they're delivering these deals, right?
Oh, exactly.
Exactly. They clearly have something. Okay, so quickly, what's going on the deep dive this afternoon?
On the dive, we've got NG Energy coming on for the first episode this week of the Daily Dive with our host Cassandra Leah. Goes over kind of left behind topic, which is oil and gas.
It's a natural gas play.
Natural gas play. So, I mean, it's certainly interesting. We'll hear about the Colombian market. It's a great interview. Aside from that, we've got some stuff coming out this afternoon from Young Justin. This morning, we had some stuff from our macro writer, Hermina Paul. Great as always. And it's been a busy start to the week, and the political environment seems to be getting even more interesting. So stay tuned, I guess. As always, I'm entertainment purposes only. I hold no financial licenses, designations, etc.
That goes for all of SmallCapSteve Live. This show is for informational purposes only. This does not constitute or mean any kind of buy or sell recommendation. We really appreciate everybody taking the time to watch, all the questions everybody brought in. And I appreciate everybody's patience with our technical difficulties. This has been a very challenging episode with Marshall's technology not working perfectly, my camera overheating, and then Marshall getting some phone calls mid-show that set his phone off. But I appreciate the fact that you guys could have watched anything for the last hour. You chose to spend that time with us, and I hope you guys will continue to join us as we continue to tell great small